All right, welcome back, and thanks again for joining me. So today I decided to do something a little bit different. So obviously this is an older video, and this is actually a Senate hearing of between Senator Ted Cruz, President Kelley Robinson, who's the Human Resources President, and Riley Gaines. So obviously this is a little bit older, and been actually contemplating doing it for quite some time, because obviously it's a very sensitive topic, right? So maybe I'll just give you a little preface here. So like the video really concentrates on Riley Gaines, and she was the champion for NCAA swim team for Tennessee, and she was one of the top ranking swimmers in that state, right? But then she swam against another former gentleman that had become a woman. So then this chronicles what had happened, and obviously it builds into a bigger story, right? Or maybe into a bigger picture, saying, hey, are women and men the same? Are they physiologically capable to like compete in a sport, right? So then this is bubbling into law at this point, right? So let's jump into it, and let's see how the story goes here.
Cruz?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Title IX was a landmark civil rights law. It helped create the incredible breadth of women's sports and girls' sports that we see across the country. I believe in girls' sports. I believe in women's sports. I'm the proud father of two daughters who are both athletes. I think participating in competitive sports is a wonderful thing for a young girl. I think it is a wonderful thing for a woman. And I think, unfortunately, today's Democrat Party has decided that women's sports and girls' sports no longer matters, and they're willing to push radical legislation designed to destroy girls' sports and women's sports. Ms. Gaines, I want to thank you for your courage. You are relatively young, but you have demonstrated incredible courage. And because you have dared to speak up, you have been demonized, you have been vilified. I saw when you were attacked by a leftist mob at San Francisco State University for daring to speak up. You had an incredible record as a swimmer at the University of Kentucky. You were a two-time NCAA All-American. You were a five-time SEC champion. You're an SEC record holder and a two-time Olympic trial qualifier. But yet on March 27th, 2022, something changed. What happened on March 17th, 2022?
And for those that may be wondering, that's Riley Gaines. She's an excellent swimmer, and I think Senator Ted Cruz there does a wonderful job, I think, putting forward her resume. And for just a little bit deeper here, I looked her up, and she has a website, and the website is rileygaines.com, where she talks about these issues, right? She talks about how she ended up being a bigger voice for women swimming, and why not just keep women's sports women, right? So like a little bit about her. She's an American former competitive swimmer from Gallatin, Tennessee, and she went to the University of Kentucky, and she was one of the top swimmers in an NCAA swim team, and she was the 2022 Southeastern Conference Women's Swimming and Diving Scholar Athlete of the Year. So I think she's currently married, and she's only 24 years old. So obviously she was like killing the game, right? She was a champion. She was a top athlete in women's sports until there was the integration of transgender women into that sport, to where she actually didn't lose. She was tied. And in this sector of the video, she talks about how that came to happen. So let's jump back to it and see how she feels about this, right?
That's when Thomas and I raced in the 200 freestyle, and again resulted in a tie.
And so you tied. What was the consequence of tying?
We went behind the awards podium, where typically you're handed your trophy, you're marched out, you're named an All-American. And so we go back there, and the official looks at both Thomas and myself and says, "Great job, but you guys tied." And we only have one trophy. Therefore, we're giving this trophy to Leah. And I question this, and I say, why? And at first, I shortened it in my testimony, but really he stumbled on his words. He didn't know how to answer this. And at first he's, well, we're just doing this in chronological order. To which I further pressed, and I said, okay, well, what are you being chronological about? Because we tied. And if we're doing this off alphabetical order, G comes before T. So what are you being chronological about? To which this wasn't a script they had prepared for him. And he actually appreciated his honesty. He did say, we have to give the trophy for Leah because Leah has to have it for pictures. They've made that clear. Leah has to have the trophy for pictures. You can pose with this trophy, but you have to give yours back. You have to go home empty-handed. Leah Thomas takes the trophy home. End of story.
Now, let me ask you, as someone who's competed at the elite level, in your experience, is there a difference between women and men?
Of course.
And to our point, right, she does chronicle what happened there, right? So she swung against Leah Thomas, and Leah Thomas is the transgender woman, and they tied. But at that point, since it's a tie, whom do we give the trophy to, right? I mean, it's a tie, it's a tie. In boxing, both of you guys have tied. There has to be a rematch. So in sports, in swimming, I'm not sure what happens when they're tied. Is there a rematch, or is it like, hey, you're both tied? Do we go with somebody who has a higher record? I don't know. But those are all good questions. But in this instance, it's treated a little bit different because it's a bit of a sensitive issue, right? So there is a transgender woman there, and there is the woman who's a natural-born woman. But since they tied, they decided to give the trophy to the transgender woman. Obviously, there's some propaganda tied into this, right? There's a political drive behind this motive. So then, in that case, I think Riley there, she feels like she's been cheated. And to our point, this is unfair. You tied. There should be some form of a tiebreaker there. Do you go for another round, or is there a rematch at some point? But to just blandly give the trophy to the other person because they are a transgender person, I think that's ridiculous. And I think that's what sparked all these conversations, right? So then how do we handle these situations at a macro level? How do we translate these laws and regulations into policy, right? And if the people that are making policy, they're supposed to be neutral, which easier said than done, right? So anyways, before I really dive deeper into this, let's see what follows next.
I think we learned this at a very young age, watching even 12 and unders play. Going through puberty causes irreversible advantage that no matter the training, no matter the diet, no matter any alterable change you can make will overcome that male advantage, especially in sports like swimming where lung capacity matters so much. Even something as silly as throat size, men have on average a 40% larger throat, which sounds like it's nothing, but when you're grasping for air, that 40% larger throat makes a huge difference in athletic success, not to mention height. You guys know the differences.
Ms. Robinson, do you?
And those are super great points, right? Any of those factors does affect the entire system. So I mean, you take in more air, you have a heavier bone density, and obviously there will be a bit more muscle density there. So like the frame is different, the muscular skeletal frame is different between the two genders, right? So all those are factors, especially if you're doing something that requires a bit of strength and rigorous training, So I think those things should be considered when you put this into a competitive aspect. Because I mean, every little counts. Yeah, I mean, little by little amounts to a huge amount of a system. So, anyways, let's see what comes out here next and how they answer the questions that are being put forward. And I'm gonna say, Senator Ted Cruz. I mean, he's one of my current favorite people. I mean, the guy can really put on a show, and he does put scrutiny to a test, right? I mean, and as it should be, right? People making law and policy that affect the masses should be scrutinized, right? Because I mean, you are affecting how people's lives are lived. So anyways, let's see how the president here, President Kelley Robinson, answers this question. Anyways, before I restart the video, and please forgive me there, uh, the person that's coming up next, her name is President Kelley Robinson, and she's an American community organizer who is the current president of the Human Rights Campaign. She was formerly the executive director of Planned Parenthood, and yeah, she sounds like a very, very liberal and in the media type of person. So let's see how she tackles these questions.
Agree with Ms. Gaines that there's a difference between women and men?
If the question is about trans women,
I'm just asking, is there a difference between women and men?
what I can say here is that the NCAA has rules in place. They've had rules in place for the last decade, and when this competition
Okay, I'm
happened,
going to try again.
the rules were clear.
Do you believe there's a difference between women and men? It's a yes/no question. Do you believe there's a difference?
Oh, I think that we're talking about this case with the NCAA.
No, I'm asking a question. Do you believe there's a difference between women and men? Most people could answer this very simply. I'm curious if you're willing to do so.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just putting it into the context of the
Is that a yes?
conversation that we're having. I think that there are definitions related to sex.
Is
but
that
I
a
also
yes?
think
So I'm
that when
trying to
we're-
get a yes or no. I'm not trying to get a speech.
I'm
Is there a difference between women and men?
I think that there are definitions for biological sex.
Okay, so you're
which
not
is
answering
different
that.
than
Let me ask
gender.
you this question then. Why do women's sports exist? If you can't define a difference between women and men, why not abolish women's sports and just tell little girls to swim with little boys and see who wins?
Oh, I'm simply
That's a beautifully stated question, right? So President Kelley Robinson, she's obviously she's in the media a lot, and she's I'm assuming very well media trained. So I think she's a pro at rephrasing questions and answering the question that she wants to answer. And I think that's what she's done there. So she was asked a direct question, but she rephrases that question to answer the question that she wants to answer, which is pretty intelligent, right? You know? So, I mean, obviously she's a part of a campaign and she works for a company that pushes that agenda. So, I mean, it's a tough position to be in, right? Because, I mean, for any company that you ever work for, let's say I work for company X. I mean, legally, I cannot trash that company even though I do not agree with like their policy or what the motto or the propaganda of that company is, right? So there are ways to go around that. I mean, you constantly hear of like whistleblowers. I mean, they may disagree with like an engineering perspective that their company is looking into, and maybe this may massively affect customers. And because of like stakeholder interest and the idea of making profits comes first, right? So I mean, you may as a person disagree with the direction of that company. So in that case, the government does allow you to whistleblow, and ideally they shouldn't be like retaliation from that company that you work for. But all these things are ideal, right? I mean, think about working for an organization to which you taught on, and you have to go in a review to the boss or to the managing director or to your manager or whatever. I mean, just think about how negative that working environment turns out to be, right? So yes, there's the ideal that, hey, you can whistleblow here, but then what are the consequences? I mean, the law just does state that, hey, we'll protect you from A, B, C, and D, or any form of retaliation from your superiors. But just how realistic is that? You know. So, anyways, I always think about these things when I see situations where somebody whistleblows and they still work for that same company. Chances are you're gonna be frustrated out the door, right? So, anyways, not to go into a rabbit hole here. Let's see how President Kelley Robinson answers this question. And I'm gonna give her props, man. She knows how to dodge the question. But anyways, let's jump back into it.
saying that that sex is
My
different
question,
than gender.
why
and I do
do-
believe
why
that
do
women's
women's
sports
sports
have a great
exist?
value. I mean, Senator, I'll tell you right
Ms.
now.
Robinson, please answer the question I'm asking you.
Absolutely.
Why do women's sports exist?
I think that there are so many positive benefits to sports.
But
I mean,
why have a
we've talked
separate
about it here
category for
today.
women? If there's no difference between women and men, why to have women's sports?
I'm saying that there's a difference between sex and gender, and that the NCAA has rules in place, which they have for the last decade.
Mr. Chairman,
which
I would
determine
like
that
to enter into
related
the
to
record an
participation.
article from Duke Law called Comparing Athletic Performances for the Best Elite Women to Boys and Men. And it goes through examining in 2017 the top records for women in the world in various track and field events. So, for example, in the 100 meter, the top record for women in the world was 10.71 seconds. Now, that record for the number one woman in the world in 2017 was, in the year 2017, broken by 124 boys under 18. In that same year, the record for the number one competing woman in the 100-meter dash in the world was broken by a total of 2,474 men. If the radical Democrat agenda to destroy girls' sports and women's sports succeeds, little girls will not have a chance to compete. So I ask unanimous consent that this article be entered into the record.
I truly do agree there with Senator Ted Cruz. And I remember there was a thing going around a few years back. People were trying to compare like Serena to one of the male top tennis players. And Serena, I don't remember, she was on like one of those late night shows, and she was kind of trying to explain the fact that, hey, yeah, I might be a top dog in this, in my league. I might be like the best of the best in the women's tennis tournaments or tennis league. But when it comes to playing with men, I mean, men are generally faster, they have more strength, and the way they serve, she couldn't even kind of try to compete with that. So, I mean, I do understand this is a hot topic. The general consensus is, hey, men and women are the same. I don't think that's correct. I think in my my macro world here, rather micro world here, I think men and women are totally different. I'm not saying one is better or the other. I'm just saying that we are different, and we bring very different things to the table, right? Women bring what they bring to the table, and men bring what they bring to the table. The two does not necessarily mean one is better than the other. They're just different, you know? So the idea that trying to equate things that are different is like the answer to man's problem or man's mankind, I think is a mistake. It's an injustice to both men and women. You know, we are different and we're good at different things. Doesn't mean one is better than the other. It just means we are different and we are good at different things. So I think that's my take on this. I think if this bubbles up into law, I think that's a problem. It's a problem for both men and women, you know? It does not necessarily favor one nor the other. It's just a problem because there's that sense of confusion between men and women, you know? So I think just keeping in mind that we're different and we are all awesomely different. And I think that's my take on that. I think to elect people that do not see that difference between the two genders, I think is a huge mistake. And if anybody tries to bring this up into law, I think they may cause a lot of demise on the way we see life and how we live it. But anyways, I don't want to get stuck on that. I just wanted to review this video. I know it's been out for quite some time now, and I quite find it very interesting, and I just wanted to like put my 2 cents in it. So once again, if you like the way I talk about these things and the videos that I just talk about, or rather the topics, I mean, like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, and yeah, let's keep the conversation going. And like I always say, if you feel very strongly about these topics, always please be kind and share your thoughts and opinions in the comment section. And let's try to be respectful. And see you guys again. Bye.